Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Tuesday, January 9th, Project Jupyter IPython weekly developers call. We are following an agenda in Dropbox paper, which is linked in the chat section of Zoom. And we will go ahead and get started with updates on IPython.
So we started a transition from our own completion machinery towards using the Jedi package to do completions, which is a separate completion and refactoring tool for Python that's existed for some time. But it kind of seems to be in limbo a bit. So I'd like to try and work out how we get that finished. I know Matthias has been working on some changes to Jedi to make it better for our use cases. So yeah, just working out where we need Jedi to get to and how we push through so that that's a thing that happens rather than a thing that gets stuck halfway.
We still need to have some feedback from front ends to know if the new message spec that is metadata that have more fine-grained information is correct, and if we need to change to that. If I don't get that, I can't forward the change to Jedi, and if we can't get the change to Jedi, well, you see where this is going. And I haven't been working that much with Jedi recently. I need to catch up with all the new APIs. And one of the problems was that Jedi was slow on some code base, and find a way to improve that, or at least have an option to pre-compile the AST or the way Jedi caches things.
Great. Thanks. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that this was a thing that was going to keep happening. And if we're skipping over documentation, then I think it's Notebook next. Grant, do you want to talk about 5.3?
Sure. I don't have a link to the paper, so if somebody can put that in the chat, I'll add that to the paper doc. But 5.3.0 RC1 was released yesterday, and it's on PyPy. So it'd be great if people could install that and play with it for a few days. There are some notable changes in there. So we have Windows terminal support, which was covered a couple weeks ago, which is great. Thomas added support for OS trash, meaning that when you delete a file or a notebook from the dashboard in the notebook, it will be moved to the OS trash versus being deleted permanently. So that's pretty cool. And there's a couple UI changes. We have a restart and run all button in the toolbar now, which it'd be good to get feedback about that, because it's going out. If anybody has any objections in the next couple of days, we can maybe make some changes there. And then there's
the directory navigation thing
that it would be nice to get some battle testing on that, because it's implemented very simply, and based on all the testing I've done, it works, but we want to make sure that that's working for different browsers and things like that, because if directory navigation stops working for our users, and that's a big problem. So yeah, please install that. I'm gonna plan on releasing it Thursday if there's no objections. So just give it a try and let us know if you run into any issues.
And then the other thing that I put under Notebook was, I've been wondering about, since we did IPython 6 last year requiring Python 3, should we this year go for Notebook 6, require Python 3 to run the server? Keep pushing that one forward.
Yeah, I don't have much of an opinion, because I don't understand all the nuances between switching from Python 2 to Python 3, but sounds like it's something that needs to happen eventually.
Yeah.
I think that sounds like a great idea.
Okay, anything else on Notebook before we move on?
Nope, that's it.
Okay, so now we'll move on to Jupyter Lab.
Right. So we, right before the break, released beta release candidate, and since that point, we've been approaching what we're calling the next release, which is beta 1. These things are still just version numbered in the packages just as before. It's just that new version number is it is also affiliated with, you know, beta 1, beta 2, etc. So anyway, some of the new things that are in the release that will be forthcoming is IPyKernel released this metadata experimental feature, which shows the types of things in completer responses. So the Jupyter Lab completer now displays that information. We have a way of saving session state called workspaces. So basically, when you go to a workspace's URL and you configure your Jupyter Lab layout and open whatever documents you want, that URL is transparently shareable. It just automatically becomes associated with that state. So you could open it in a new browser or potentially even share a link if two people are using the same server, and that workspace will be loaded automatically for you. It's a little bit like right now, if you hit refresh, your page maintains its state. It's just like that, but shareable. So if you go to /lab, you have the normal situation where there's no workspace, nothing gets saved to the server. But if you go to /lab/workspaces/ any name you want, whatever you want, the way, say, appear in Works, where you type in dynamically things in the URL, you could have /lab/workspaces/foo, and anything you do in that session becomes a shareable link. So you can test in multiple browsers. You could have different configurations for different activities. For example, different classes that you're teaching, each gets just one URL in, say, a binder or something like that. Let's see, what else was in there? Oh yeah, so we're working on extensive user documentation because most of our documentation up until this point had been developer docs. There's an abstraction for all of the widgets that an extension can add that show up in the main area of Jupyter Lab. So the inspector, the notebook, the console, the terminal, all these things reside in that main area. So we've created a main area widget abstraction that sort of makes it easier for an extension author to do basically like a cookie cutter thing where they don't have to roll their own toolbars and roll their own sort of boilerplate. We're doing that for them. Oh, right, Jason just added, working through some subtle focus issues, which are some of the last things we need to get in before we do our beta 1 release, having to do with just mouse focus on cells and the sort of complexities that arise. Okay, yeah, and Jessica wanted to talk about documentation.
Oh, yeah, I think we have, Darian mentioned that we have a pull request on the user level documentation. We're going to be working through getting some like screen captures and like GIFs for the user documentation. So that's going to be coming along as well. We've done well, Brian has done a major refactor of the documentation page. So that's something new going on. I think from what I recall in my conversation with Brian, he's interested in having that be the theme that is available to other libraries as well. So if you guys are interested, you can take a look at that. I don't remember if he's posted the theme. It's basically the same thing, except I think he's added some orange to it. In addition to that, we have a Medium post draft that's available online on the Dropbox paper folder. I'd welcome any sort of feedback on that. So if anybody wants to look at it before it goes public, be my guest.
All right. right, anything else on Jupyter Lab before we move on to widgets?
Oh yeah, one last thing. I forgot to mention. I think we're doing, as Darian mentioned, we're doing testing. I think we have resources for kinds of user tests that we want to do. In case anyone is interested, you guys can reach out to us to just make sure that we can kick the tires on it.
Okay, sounds good. Jason, you want to talk about widgets?
Sure. We had a widget 7.1 release, and things have been fairly quiet over the holidays. We do have a widgets workshop coming up in about 2 weeks in Paris, and a lot of people are gathering there, and we'll probably see a huge push in development there.
Great. Okay, sounds good. Em, do you want to talk about MB Convert?
So most of my focus has been on some other stuff that I'll mention toward at the end, because it's a sort of miscellaneous project that extends Jupyter Lab. But it's been a while since there's been an MB Convert release, and so I want to make that happen. And because I'm talking, my cat is trying to get into the picture. So yeah, there's not too much news on MB Convert other than there will soon be news.
Okay, good. We look forward to that. So we're going to skip over services. Peter's not able to join the call. We'll move on to Jupyter Hub.
Howdy, everybody. And we are getting back into the groove. Did a bunch of, now I just lost my Dropbox paper. But we've got a configurable HTTP proxy maintenance release that might come out late this week, early next week, depending on Min's travel schedule. And we've done some, the first monthly meeting, and we've been doing weekly virtual meetings for the joint Jupyter Hub binder team, and we're working on scheduling the February one so that M can attend as well. And we will record the February meeting. We just were kind of getting in the groove the last time. And the working agenda, there's a link to that. And then the things that we've been doing weekly, there's an archive of that. We've been working through last week some deployment issues with Travis and automated deployments. And so we've upgraded the SRE guide and the installation instructions, and are still working through some things on Travis. And as for the other projects, we're working down the different open items in the different sub-projects, and also working on using NBGrader as a service so that we have that in a better, more easily deployable state. So there's probably some additional development work with that. And then somebody else wrote the last bullet, so I will let them talk about it.
Oh yeah, hi. Also, some I guess like bad news and good news. We submitted to a fairness, accountability, and transparency in machine learning conference, and unfortunately, our tutorial was not accepted. But they did select our proposal as something to be featured at the conference as like a resource for reproducibility. So that will be coming along as a draft, and so I guess that's good. I'm interested to find out what other kinds of feedback we can get in terms of how do we talk about these ideas with regards to reproducibility to scientists who are interested but don't necessarily think about that as in terms of their workflow. But yeah, so that's I think good news.
Alrighty. One thing that I wanted to bring up, Carol, if you guys aren't thinking about it already, should consider, actually I should just ask, are you considering meeting in person for the Jupyter Hub and Binder team at some point in 2018?
I am not quite certain. That was not something we talked about. I mean, we had talked sort of informally about doing it, but we hadn't really set any sort of formal discussion on it. So I don't know. given that we're all spread around, it may be something that kind of overlaps with something else.
Okay. Something to think about.
Yep.
Yep. Okay. So now we'll move on to other projects. M, do you want to?
So this is what I was talking about before. So what there's a soon-to-be released version of Jupyter Lab LaTeX, which will do live. It's an extension that'll do live LaTeX rendering. In Jupyter Lab, uses the Python server as the backend for communicating with LaTeX. It's configurable for using whatever you want. Whatever LaTeX engine you want to use, using tradelets. And if people want to try it out and give some feedback, we're welcome to it. But yeah, soon to be released and seemingly fully functional. Of course, there are always bugs, but yeah.
Okay. Great.
That's Ian and me that have been working on that.
Okay. Very good. Matthias, do you want to talk about the blog and submitting drafts?
Yes, sure. We had a small discussion last week on the Binder meeting, and we realized that it was hard to know when some blog posts were going to be posted, because usually people use either Dropbox Paper or Google Doc or something else to write collaboratively. And to avoid to have too many blog posts coming together or know when weeks are going to be quiet, when you know that you're going to post something, can you just submit a draft to blog.jupyter.org with just, well, I'm probably going to write about that, and it's going to be probably published around this date, so that we know in advance on the blog when you are editor or author what is going to happen.
Okay.
That's just it. It just simplify organization.
Yeah. I saw that. I saw somebody post something like that with a link to the not the paper, the Google Drive file that they were working on. So
yeah, I mean, if you want to share it, you just put a link there so that people can go and help.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so before we move on to kind of these last couple of sections of the agenda, is there anything else that didn't get covered in the above that anyone wants to share, either with the other people on the call or with the community?
There is something I wrote after in the JupyterCon section. In a couple of weeks, probably relatively soon, all the links to JupyterCon 2017 will point to 2018, because the new content will replace the old content.
Sure.
So if you have any links somewhere that you know is explicitly pointing to the old version and needs to keep pointing to the old version, take a note of that, and you will have to change it in a couple of weeks.
So all the old stuff will still be online. We'll just have to change the URL.
Yes.
Okay.
And if you have access to the current JupyterCon 2018 website, all the current URL will change as well. Like they will remove the 2017 and archive it and put the 2018 with all the same URL as 2017. If that makes sense.
Yes, it does to me.
I mean, I know that URL are supposed to be, we try to be static and not change, but it will change anyway. So yeah.
Are they also going to make the 2018 your archive URL available at the same time so that we can make links for 2018 that we don't have to change later?
I will try to ask.
Thanks. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
Okay. So we also have a working list of conferences, upcoming conferences and workshops. Please continue adding to that, and also sharing when you see open call for papers or call for proposals so that we can, excuse me, share that out with the community. Talked a little bit about JupyterCon already. No major news at this point. Hopefully we'll have some news to share on that soon. We're definitely working on this year's event. And the last sections are really the action items. If you have anything that you would want people to focus on working on this week, anything related to your projects, please add that there. And then our last section is just kind of repeating, for the sake of archiving, any releases that we have planned for this week, anything that's coming soon, and also anything that got released last week. So I think that's the end of the agenda. Happy New Year, everyone. That's our first meeting of the year as we get back into the groove of meeting weekly. And I'll give one more chance for anyone to add anything before we go ahead and close off.
I'll just do an FYI. There's a Science Gateways webinar tomorrow. So for people that are interested in Binder or Jupyter Hub, they're actually having somebody from Google Cloud Platform talk about multi-institution support. So there may be some people that are interested in, and I believe they record them. So you don't have to be there real time.
Okay. All right. I will go ahead and sign off then. Thank you, everyone.